Dale Pruitt had worked the service floor at Mabry Motorworks for 11 years, and he thought he knew every kind of man who came through those glass doors. He knew the ones who apologized for the oil on their boots and the ones who didn't. He knew the ones who asked questions and the ones who just got the work done. Ray Calder, in Dale's estimation, was simply the quiet kind. The man who showed up before the bays were unlocked, kept his head down, and turned wrenches with tools that looked like they'd come from an estate sale, rather than a supply catalog. Dale had noticed the tools more than once. He hadn't said anything, but he'd noticed. He was noticing them again on the Tuesday morning Holt Mabry walked the floor. Mabry owned 4 dealerships across 2 counties, and dressed like a man who needed you to know it. He had the kind of that carried without effort, and on that Tuesday, he aimed it at the back of Ray's bent head while a couple buying a restored coupe stood 10 feet away pretending to study a brochure. Mabry reached into Ray's open toolbox and lifted out a ratchet, worn handle, the chrome dulled to a matte gray, and held it up the way a man holds something he's found in a gutter. "You bring this into my shop," Mabry said, loud enough for the couple and the 2 other techs nearby to hear. "And you think this is acceptable?" He set the ratchet down with a click that sounded deliberate. "These are pawnshop tools, son. A man with hands like yours has got no business being near cars like mine." Ray straightened up. He was 41. Lean in the way outdoor work makes a man lean. Oh, with grease worked so deep into the knuckles it had become part of the skin. He looked at Mabry without any particular heat. "I'll get my things," he said. Dale laughed. Not a big laugh, a short one, a reflex. The kind you make when you're agreeing with the room without quite meaning to. The other 2 techs smiled. The couple went back to their brochure a little faster. Ray picked up the ratchet, dropped it into his box, and latched the lid. Dale watched him walk across the floor and out through the side door. Through the service window, he could see the lot, and beyond the lot, the street, where a dark green pickup sat running at the curb. In the passenger seat, barely visible above the door, was a small girl with her hair in a braid, holding something in her lap, a library book, it looked like. She waved when Ray came out. He waved back before he'd even reached the truck. Dale looked away. The auction was 3 days out. Mabry Motorworks handled the service certification for Vane Collective, the auction house that operated out of the converted warehouse next door. And this particular auction was the biggest of the year. The centerpiece was a 1963 Ardmore GT Coupe, one of 41 ever produced, fully restored, consigned by an estate out of state. The kind of car that serious people flew in for. On the morning before the auction, with bidders already arriving, the Ardmore would not start. Dale was the first one Nora Vane called. He spent 25 minutes on it and handed it back no better than he'd found it. The fuel delivery was right. The electrical read clean. The timing had been set correctly at the last service. Whatever it was subtle, and subtle was not Dale's gift. He was good at the work that followed clear diagnosis. This was something else. 2 more certified techs from Mabry's staff went at it in sequence. Neither one got it running. The second one suggested it might be a core issue in the rebuilt carburetor. A job that would take 2 days and pull the car from the auction entirely. The estate's representative, a precise woman in a gray suit, stood at the edge of the bay with her arms folded and said nothing, which was somehow worse than if she'd said something. Nora Vane walked back to her office and started calling shops. Dale was eating lunch at the folding table in the break room when his phone lit up with a text from the floor. "Lady from next door is asking around for a mechanic. Says Holt's guys has already swung and missed." He ate the rest of his sandwich. He didn't offer anything. An hour later, looking out the service window, he saw the dark green pickup pull into the auction house lot. Ray came in with his toolbox and his daughter walking beside him. The girl, Maisie, Dale would later learn, was 8 years old, and carried her library book tucked under one arm like a briefcase. She sat herself down on a folding chair, just inside the bay door without being told to, opened her book and began to read. Ray set his toolbox beside the Ardmore, stood still for a moment, looking at the car, the way a man looks at a chessboard before his first move, and then opened his box. Nora Vane stood to the side. She was somewhere in her mid-40s, with the bearing of someone who had learned to wait. She watched Ray without watching him. The way you do when you're trying not to make a person self-conscious about their work. Once, when Maisie shifted in the folding chair and her book slipped, Nora crossed the bay, picked it up, and handed it back to her. Maisie said thank you without looking up. Nora smiled at the top of the girl's head. Dale, for reasons he didn't fully examine, had drifted over to the auction house door and was watching through the glass. Ray worked for 50 minutes. He didn't rush, and he didn't narrate. He pulled the carburetor, found a metering rod that had been seated a quarter turn off during the rebuild. Nearly nothing, the kind of error that a checklist catches and a tired tech misses. Reseated it, reinstalled the unit, and bled the system. When he turned the key, the Ardmore's engine came up on the first try. It settled into a low, even idle that Dale could feel in his sternum through the glass door. The estate representative uncrossed her arms. Nora opened the car's service logbook to document Ray's work, and she paused. Dale saw her pause, saw her go still over the open book, the way you go still when you read something that rearranges something else. She read one page, then flipped back several, then several more. "Mr. Calder," she said, "this notation system, the shorthand in these service entries." She turned the logbook so he could see it. "I've seen this in every car that's come through here for 12 years. Mabry's techs all use it." Ray glanced at the page. "Yes, ma'am. Did you write this?" He looked at it a moment longer. "I put it together when I started there. Holt had it adapted into the department manual. It went in under the shop's name." Nora looked at him for a few seconds. Then she looked at Dale through the glass, and Dale found something suddenly important to study on his own shoes. 30 days later, Dale drove past the auction house on his way in and saw Ray's green pickup in the lot. It had been there every morning for 3 weeks. He'd heard from Nora's office manager. The whole county had heard that Vane Collective had ended its service contract with Mabry Motorworks. The reason given was a mutual decision. The reason everyone understood was the Ardmore. Mabry had lost the certification work, and with it the referrals that came from every car that passed through the auction. It was the kind of loss that doesn't announce itself all at once. It just keeps being true. Ray worked out of a dedicated bay Nora had set up on the east side of the warehouse. 2 of the senior techs from Mabry's shop, including a man Dale respected, had already contacted Ray about training sessions on the diagnostic framework, the notation system, the layered checks, the logic underneath it that the manual had never quite explained because the man who wrote it had never been asked to teach it. Dale hadn't reached out yet. He thought about it. What he thought about more on his drive-in was something he'd seen through the warehouse window the previous Friday afternoon. Ray and Maisie were sitting on the tailgate of the green truck. Nora had come out with 2 cups of something hot and handed one to Ray and crouched down to say something to Maisie that made the girl grin and hold up her library book, a different one this time. Nora took it, read the back cover, handed it back, said something else. Maisie laughed. Ray was watching Nora with a look Dale had no word for. Quiet, maybe. Careful. The way a man is careful with something he's not sure yet he's allowed to have. Dale had laughed at a good man for the look of his tools. He thought about that, too. The morning light came flat and gold across the auction house lot as he pulled in. And the green pickup was there, engine already off, the day already begun. Dale sat in his car a minute before getting out. A man could spend 11 years on a floor and learn exactly the wrong things about who was worth watching. He thought maybe there was time left to learn different. He got out, walked to the warehouse door, and knocked.